Yeah, first of all, it was, I do believe things always happen for a reason. I'm very much of that mindset and have been for a good number of years, not always that way inclined, but um, it was a very, it was, a, it was a very, how can I say it? It gave me a lot. It gave me a lot more than I expected. And really, for me, it's easy to get bogged down in life with everything you normally do on a daily basis. The fact we've just moved to Dubai and everything else, and the fact that, there was a million reasons not to come on that trip. And then I actually realized what makes me feel alive. And the invitation to do something like that, it scared me, but excited me at the same time. And when I say that is I've not ridden a bike for a long, long time. And even, going into that event, people were saying, are you mad? You're cycling up Jebel Jais and you've never haven't ridden a bike for a long time. So, it was that was like initially getting me to sort of go that path of least resistance and say, you've got so much work to do and everything else. But it was so amazing that in the end, I just went, no, you know what? This is exactly 100% what I need. And this is meant to come right now at this time. And, and then I sort of fell into that experience, sort of steered along by Jimmy, bless his soul, who's only just left, actually. He's just left our place back to Thailand. But for me, it was incredible. Everyone was so welcoming. And one thing about my like celebrity status, I never set out to be a celebrity. I stumbled over that. And it was something for me that it means a lot to me because I feel that I have got a duty to really help as many people as possible. So for me, I don't like to go on a trip where everyone's like, it was great for me that people didn't know who I was because because then people don't have any preconceived perceptions of who you are. It's just like humans speaking to humans without anything in the way. And very much for me, I'm very humble about the fact that I've got that notoriety on TV and everything else. So for me, just being in that community of people where people were from all diverse backgrounds, from all over the world, and a lot of people didn't know who I was. It was just so amazing. It was so welcoming, and people weren't just welcoming me because I was the guy off the telly and you've got to be nice to the people off the TV. They were organically really nice to me and welcoming, and it was I just fit right. I slotted right into the event with yeah. It was an amazing experience, and I hadn't even started by that time, so that was just the start. Failure, you know what I mean? It's not just failure. I come from a background, former special forces, and honestly, the the pressure to perform was quite it was outrageous. You know what I mean? I know back in those days people died and there was a lot of onus on you getting the thing right. And always I've held that, that it's not that sort of subconscious. I have to wake myself up and just calm myself down a lot of the time because it's not just the fact that it's the fact of not, I mean, it's the fact that I need to be at the front. My little ego and my subconscious says you need not only to do okay, you need to be at the front to justify. This it's those mind games that we all have. The inner voice. And it's sort of saying that who will people think you are? This you're supposed to be this guy off the TV, and you've got to be at the front and everything else. And then I start thinking, well, I haven't ridden a bike for a long time. I could fail. It could go miserable. It could go wrong. But it doesn't take long for me to snap myself out of that because I just understand the way the mind works. I just understand what it's doing, and that proves right. I have to actually get them on the bike. I'm not saying that wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it was no way as hard as my mind was initially sort of throwing up the alarm bells at the start. But I understand what's going on, and a lot of the times when it comes to this stuff, you have to throw yourself in. You have to. And this is why my business is called Breakpoint. It's stepping into short-term discomfort for long-term gain. And nothing was ever great unless at some point you doubted your ability to achieve it. After doing that, that's then the catalyst for me to then go and put in for an Ironman in September. So look what it's done. It's absolutely yeah. And again, for me, it's I'm a big believer that we should. I like to in the heaviness and everything of work and your everyday life. I think it's so important that you give yourself at least one big challenge every year. But I think it's at least I need one challenge. Like last year, I was supposed to climb Everest. I didn't do a challenge last year. So this year is going to be different. So an Ironman in September, but we have to throw ourselves into discomfort, and that's when we start to feel that zest for life. And that's certainly what the Ride for Unity offered me. It was incredible. It was brilliant. Yeah, I mean the ride for me. Again, I stuck at the front all the way through, and it's not to say I stuck at the front, I was the fittest and I was at the front, because there was lots of great riders behind me, just keeping the pack together and everything else. But initially I stayed at the front. I didn't know if I was going to stay at the front for a long time, but I just stayed there, and it was, like I said, it was by no means easy at all. And when you haven't been on the saddle for a long time, it really hurts in places you never knew existed. So yeah, it was a little bit uncomfortable. My knees were screaming a little bit. I think sometimes when I actually go slower, it causes so much more strain on my knees, and I think that's the same for a lot of people. So yeah, it was uncomfortable, but it was achievable, and it was and challenging at the same time. But just, I mean, if there's anything to take your mind away from the pain, it's riding up Jebel Jays and looking around you, and try not to get too focused on the ground below. It's about taking in everything. And, that's a good analogy, good metaphor for life. Sometimes we get so bogged down and only seem to look at our feet. But every now and then it pays just to look up and look around, and to also look how far you've come, and that is so rewarding. So the ride itself, it was challenging, and got to the top. And to get at the top there, after you've achieved that with a group of people, a tight group of people that are so all driven for the same purpose, there's nothing like that. And actually standing there looking over the mountains, that's what you do it for, and then also, the Ride for Unity, what's it all about? It's to unite people. And we were a united group of people, and its smallest contingent riding up Jebel Jais on that day, and all got there at the end, and you're only as fast as your last person. And we all waited for the last person to come in, cheers and everything else, supported all the way. And it was just great to be with everyone. It was an amazing experience. And one of those things will be a milestone for 2025 for sure. And it's only just begun. I mean, if you ever need inspiration, people like Carlos are just unbelievable human beings. And, you often in life start to think, fully able-bodied people with no ailments, so to speak of. And sometimes when you can hear yourself complaining, you just have to remind yourself of people like Carlo. They're out doing it and smashing it. And that's such massive inspiration. And I always say this as well, wherever you are, there's always someone that would love to have your problems. This is something we should all take from it. When it comes to goals, when it comes to, getting to the top, getting to the peak, getting to the summit, whatever goal that may be, it's not about what you get. It's not about what you get. It's about who you become. And this is where so many people get lost, because they think the whole purpose of a goal is to get something at the end, to achieve that thing when you go across the line. But it's not. It's really the person you become in the journey. And I know that can sound probably a little bit cliche, but it's so true. And it's not really, I've learned so much throughout the things in my life that life is a series of failures. And I always say this: if you're not failing to some degree, your goals aren't big enough. If you're not failing to some degree, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, then you're simply dying. So, and that all happens on the journey. So really for me, the journey for me and getting to the top isn't about, hey, look at me, I got to the top and I was in the front of the pack and everything else. No, it's more a reflection of the people I'm with, the journey that I've just been on. And it's about reviewing everything that's just happened and how hard you've worked, looking down on that and just taking in that whole journey at that moment in time when you do pass the finish line. But it's not about, for me, it's not about things things you get, the material things you get, like a medal or anything like that. It's how you grow on the way to that point. I think goal setting and goal achieving is such a fundamental part of who we are as humans, because without a goal, we get so bogged down in the mundane, in the absolute mundane, in the absence of something pulling you through in life. You just get bogged down in the mundane. And we are a problem solving. Well, let me put it to you like this, right? The subconscious mind is a goal-striving, goal-getting machine that stops at nothing till it gets what its dominant thoughts focus on. So really, if you don't give yourself something big to pull you through, your mind will start looking for problems. And before you know it, you get bogged down with a load of stuff that really doesn't suit what you're looking for at all. So, that for me is the fact that I felt amazing when I got to the top, but it wasn't about getting to the top. It was about the whole journey, the whole fact of going all the way back to the fact of Jimmy saying, hey, do you want to do this? And I didn't really think about it. Yes, I want to do it. Let's do it. Just throwing myself in. And I said this to Jimmy as well, which I think is really, sometimes we say it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Have you heard that statement? Well, I think people need to do this when it comes to their own personal lives as well, because I didn't want to ask myself for permission. I'll just throw myself in and then I'll ask for forgiveness. We should do that with ourselves, because I think it takes around about 5 seconds for the brain to start to talk you out of something that you haven't done before. So once you come up with an idea, something you want to do, if you don't take action in the direction of that, your brain will, within 5 seconds, starts to think of all the things that could go wrong. And then before you know it, you're so bogged down with what could go wrong, you don't even step towards your dreams. And, the more you can do this on a physical basis, there's a lot of stuff that, I do a lot of mindfulness. I do a lot of work around mindset, but you can't do it without action. It's the action part that really meets in the middle of that. You can't sit there just thinking your way to a great life. You've got to take action. And really, a lot of the times, if it feels right, follow your gut, follow your. For me, it felt right. Jimmy asked me, it felt right. I thought, I haven't done the challenge for ages. I've just moved overseas. I've been bogged down with moving. I've been bogged down with all the admin and everything else. I've just moved into a new house, new country, and just throw yourself into it. And it was the best. You know what? If I hadn't have done that, there would have been that opportunity for so much growth and so much personal appreciation and gratitude and everything else that I'd have missed out on that window. So these are the building blocks of who we are. So it was an amazing experience from start to finish. But at the top there, it's a reflection of the long journey. Start from the moment, it was a quick turnaround. I had about 2 days notice to jump in there. And, I embraced it, loved it. And it made me feel alive again. Another reason I was so passionate about coming and joining this, because I feel there's so much division. I know there's so much division in this world, and there's no stronger bond than that human connection. And I feel the answer to a lot of problems on this planet is down to the fact that we are all so divided, whether that's race, gender, religion, whatever it may be. There's so many aspects that are just absolutely ridiculous. And the more we can get people to drop those barriers and come together as people, regardless, I think I think that's the answer to so many issues globally. And I really think, I've been thinking about this when it comes to Dubai. And you look at Dubai, right? There's only a small amount of Emiratis in Dubai now. Actually, in Dubai, you've got people from all over the globe thrown together. Okay, different religions, different race, different gender, obviously, and everyone gets on. So what's happening everywhere else then? If we can do it, that means it can be done. And that really, of course we can do it, because that's the natural way that humanity is supposed to be. We're supposed to be together. We're supposed to support each other. And there's nothing more powerful than that. And, you know, a lot of the work I do outside of, you know, the TV stuff is about people coming together, is about dropping all those preconceived issues that aren't really there. And, you know, if you can do it on a smaller scale, then maybe it can prevent wars. Maybe it can prevent, you know, a lot of the mindless, harmful things that are going on in the world today. I really believe as well, the answer lies with our children. You know, if you can get, because at the end of the day, you know, these are our future. Children are our future. So I think it's such a powerful message to go into schools to really educate them from the ground up, because, you know, a lot of the issues stem from those early years, you know, and the things and the programming and the things we're told and the news that we see and this, that, and the other. So if you can get to the children and you start to tell them about unity, about community, and fill them with love instead of hate, I think it's the answer. It is the answer. Absolutely. You know what? I think about this from time to time, and I think about back to the tribal village that hasn't been affected by modern day society, right? You look at a tribal village, I'm not sure if we had this conversation, but a tribal village, the most respected people in that village are who? It's the elders, isn't it? The elders are the most respected people in the village. They've got the wisdom, they've got the knowledge. Then you've got the youngsters, and really in a tribal village, who looks after the youngsters? It's the elders. The elders look after the youngsters, and the elders learn from the youngsters, and the youngsters learn from the elders with all the wisdom. Then you've got the young men that are, you know, fight for the village and also help to build the village. You've got the next sort of level of middle management, if you want to call it that. You know, the fathers and everything who then manage that village. And it's a cycle that supports that education and growth. And you look at modern day society, that is severed. Age is demonized. You know, our elders are kept away from our children, you know, put in homes and everything on this, that, and the other. You know, society has really broken the family unit, the family model. And I really think there's so much to be learned. And like I say, the children have got before they're sort of contaminated, do you want to call it contaminated? Because that's what it is. They're programmed, they're contaminated, and they're they're sort of a clean skin. They're a blank canvas, and they've got that, they're organic. Do you know what I mean? So there's so much that can be learned from children. But there's so much damage that can be done as well, and has been done, you know, due to, you know, various things going on in the world and the media and everything else. So I just that's an observation for me, because I think we can learn a lot from that. But yes, modern day society's broken the family unit and really doesn't respect that whole educational cycle. For me, it's just unity. First of all, you know, it's the fact that everyone felt so empowered by that whole experience. And honestly, you don't need to be told that, you could feel it. You don't need to be told by someone from that group that, oh, I had a really good time. You didn't need to be told that, because you can see it in their faces, you can see it in their eyes, you can feel it. You can feel that it was just such an amazing connection of people. So really for me, it was just like, yeah, it was that close-knit, that tight, close-knit group. And everyone felt empowered. Everyone understood that although they were giving, it gave them so much as well. So, and I think that's the beauty of when people come together with a shared goal, shared purpose, and it's so powerful as well. You know, there's no greater gift than being in the service of others. And, you know, and that's innate within us all. A lot, you know, in today's society, again, you know, we're losing a grip on that. So many people are so driven by how many followers they've got on Instagram, and even in a close-knit team in corporates and in sports team, people are fighting for position. They'll climb over each other to get to that position. And that for me was like, with that group of people, it was just such a shared wealth of experience. And everyone, and like I say, it wasn't, you didn't need to hear it from anyone. You know, you hugged everyone when it came to the end of that. and you could feel a genuine compassion for what we'd all done together. Yeah, so for me, it was so empowering. And really, from the things that I felt, I know that everyone felt a very similar way. You know, it was incredible. It must continue because the message is so strong, and it's not about right for unity is not going to change the world. That's fact. But the thing is, we can change other people's views and opinions, and it can change the way they understand unity in their own lives, and that can have a ripple effect all across the globe. You know, so it's about, if we can influence one people, if you can change one person, you are changing a number of people's lives. You know, so just the more we can work together to do that, the more people you can influence, that will have a ripple effect. And I think really that is such a powerful thing to do. And it's all about, you know, I'd love there to be 20 different organizations doing the same thing. It's not about us, you know, Right for Unity being the only one, and we're the only ones that do this, etc., etc. The more we can get people to do different things where we break down all this division, then the better. You know, and that could be the fact that you just, you know, and I said, you know, what the great thing about going to that school was that, you know, any one of those students, from the younger ones to the older ones, just by seeing people that have achieved some great things in their lives, can set them on a path. So, you know, sometimes we can go in and think, oh, wow, we had an amazing day at the school, but we could have, well, and I'm sure it's going to happen. It's hard to sort of, see the value it's given, but, you know, I can guarantee that some of those people we've changed their lives by just being there and just putting them on a different path. So the more we can do that, and the more we can keep doing what we're doing, it's just about doing that 1%, isn't it? Just 1% can have a massive difference globally. So, well, sometimes you feel so overwhelmed that you won't take action. But again, you know, if you can just change the view or opinion of just one person, and then that can have a ripple effect to someone else and everything else. So all I'm saying is, you know, how can people affect change? And that is simply by a piece at a time, and understanding that no goal is too big. And the longer that we all sit there and think that the problem is bigger than the solution, we're never going to see an end to the issue. So don't be overwhelmed by the size of the goal. And just take a step forward and lean into it with passion. I want to share the fact that I'm so proud of finding my soul and uncovering all the blocks and all the obstacles to get to my soul. And not a day goes by that I don't appreciate the journey that I've been on. And I'll never know all the solutions or the answers, because there's not enough life left for that. But I'm just so grateful that I became aware of who I was after all these years. And I do feel now connected with my soul 100%. And I think that is just so empowering for me. You know, I was on a path of self-destruction up until 2015, and it wasn't a nice place to be, you know, from the brink of suicide. And I decided, no, enough's. I'm not accepting the person I was anymore. And my soul was actually screaming for me to be the person I was meant to be. And it was my greatest battle, but my greatest discovery. And I'd really like to say to anyone that is struggling through life, and there is a lot of mental health problems, that regardless of how bad things get, you always have a choice. Always have a choice. And there's always a way out. And you must understand, it was an epiphany for me when I realized that if you want to change anything in your outside world, you have to change the energy of who you are. It's an inside job. And this is where it all starts. You know, we can't change anything out there unless we change the energy of who we are. And that is you connecting with your soul. Listen, I had such a great time that I consider myself part of the team, and I'd love to see myself doing future events with Ride for Unity. I'm now going to be on a bike a lot more often, and that's a big thanks. So personally, I'd like to thank Ride for Unity for getting me to, I used to love bikes. I've always been on bikes all my life, and it's pushed me back onto a bike, and I've got a lot to thank for that personally. So, to that end, if I consider myself part of the team, and I'd love to do more stuff. I feel that given a bit more time, I could offer so much more than I did on that 3 days. I know, when it came to some of the talks, it wasn't possible for me to get on the stage and things because of permits and this, that, and the other. But given the opportunity, I'd really like to unleash the full potential of Ollie Ollerton, and I'm sure it will be of great value to everyone.